Hello, team. Thanks for tuning in to the Clemson Drone Podcast. Before we start the pod, I just want to take a quick minute to let you know about our brand new comprehensive 2-course online program. This is something we just launched in February and are super pumped about. It starts off with our 8-week UAS vocation course. In this class, you'll earn your Part 107 license, learn to fly with our simulator, create maps and models using Drone Deploy, and become a Level 1 thermographer. After that, we're excited to announce our brand new course called UAS Mission Administration. This class is designed for current pilots and UAS program leaders. Over 8 weeks, we'll cover enhanced general knowledge, advanced mission planning, and you'll create your organization's custom standard operating procedure manual using our cutting-edge AI tools. At the end of the course, you'll earn AUVSI's Level 1, 2, and 3 Trusted Operator certifications. Check it all out at clemsondrone.com. Now, back to the pod. Welcome to the Clemson Drone Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Burgett from Clemson University. Join me as I dive into the world of drone technology and explore its impact through the eyes of industry leaders. Hear how drone technology directly supports public agencies, private companies, and entrepreneurs from those leading the innovation. If you're a seasoned UAS program manager or just getting into the game, this is a place to learn from the best to help your program soar to new heights. Make sure you subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a single episode of the Clemson Drone Podcast. At Clemson Drone, the sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning. Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Clemson Drone Podcast. I'm Joe Burgett, and I'll be your host. So in my position, I get a lot of questions from folks who are looking to start a drone business, but are a little bit worried about the initial risk of it. And some advice that I commonly give is to start by joining a drone service provider network. If you're not familiar with that, a drone service provider, think of Uber, but for drones, very similar business model there. So to see if I've been given bad advice this whole time, I've invited a very special guest, Mr. Matt Domas with FlyGuys. FlyGuys, if you're not familiar with them, is a leading drone service provider providing drone data acquisition services across the country. And I could think of no one better to talk to us about this subject. So Matt, great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Joe. Excited for this.
Okay, good deal. Well, we'll dive right in. But before we kind of get into FlyGuys and talking more about the subject at hand, it's always kind of good to kind of know who's on the other end of the Cat5 cable or the Bluetooth or whatever it is you're listening this on. So, Matt, can you kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, where'd you grow up, and maybe what got you into drones?
Yeah. Grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana. I'm still here. That's where actually the headquarters of FlyGuys is located. Grew up in Lafayette, went to a local college, Raging Cajuns, University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Graduated in finance, worked as a financial analyst for 2 or 3 years outside of college, and then started diving into the drone industry. It got me super excited, and sure enough, FlyGuys was hiring, and I was lucky enough to land the opportunity here at FlyGuys.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that. So, with that, let's kind of move to FlyGuys. And in my introduction, I kind of introduced the company as a drone service provider, again, providing services across the country. I believe the country founded in 2018. Again, shortly thereafter, Part 107. Part 107 was released in 2016. So you guys are, right there on the edge. Why don't you, kind of set the table here and just tell us a little bit more about FlyGuys?
Yeah, so I've only been at FlyGuys for 3 years now. We've been growing like crazy year over year. It's a startup. It's very much a startup. We're growing like crazy, and I love the intensity.
Okay, great. And I think you said it's based in Louisiana, right? But it's a national presence, right?
Correct. National presence, and we even do a little bit of work outside of the United States, but slim at the moment, but we're working on it.
Okay, very good. Perfect. Now, I know that you guys do have some in-house pilots, but I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I think the lion's share of your pilots are contracted out through your network. So they're basically 1099 employees or contract employees or independent contractors. Is that a fair statement to say?
Yeah, that's correct. Mainly, we use our internal pilots for projects that we need full control over. Full control over meaning we need certifications, they need to be under the FlyGuys payroll and stuff like that. But 99% of the work is contracted out to our network.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to spend some time talking about that. But to join that network, what are the qualifications of these contract employees or these independent contractor pilots? What are the qualifications needed to join the network?
Obviously, your Part 107 is going to be first and foremost. Secondly is going to be insurance. And then lastly would be a drone.
Okay. And we're going to talk about that equipment here in a minute. What about like other certifications? So obviously part 1 is 7, I get that. Other things like, a thermography certification, or maybe if they're using drone deploy, if there's like a certification associated with that. Are there any other certifications that, even if they might not be required, look good, or, maybe, will catch your eye as you're kind of doling out jobs?
Definitely. Thermography is a big one. The thermal industry and utilizing thermal sensors is growing. Obviously, thermography is a big one. We get pretty often requests when it comes to TWIC certification or TWIC cards, and then obviously OSHA. All those certifications are all a big plus, but not necessary.
Can you unpack the TWIC cards?
Yeah, TWIC cards are sometimes specifically requested by some of our industrial clients, and just having a TWIC card is always a plus.
Okay. Okay. And do the pilots need to be, have like an established LLC or a sole proprietor? Is that okay? Or is there any kind of like company or organization that you only work with?
No, not at
Okay.
all. It could be a benefit, but no, it's not necessary.
Not necessary to be, have like an LLC or corporation. From a liability point of view, it might be in the pilot's best interest, but it's not necessarily something you require.
Correct.
Okay, how about experience? Is there a certain number of flight hours that you look for, or does it depend upon the job, that sort of thing?
That's going to depend upon the job. Obviously, there's your basic real estate marketing that could use a Mavic Mini or a Mavic 2 Pro, and then you have your more complicated or highly accurate projects that require either the Mavic 3 Enterprise or the DJI P1, just different types of sensors.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so let's dive into the equipment piece of it, because that's could be one of the larger barriers to entry to joining a network. So if you want to join the network, you have to come with your own equipment. Is there a recommendation on the type of equipment that you would suggest someone have? Is there, a minimum, or, even if there's not a minimum, is there like a recommended, like this is, I don't want to throw a number out, but let's just say that 80% of our jobs, are done with XYZ drone. So kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So great point. A large majority of our jobs are flown with the Mavic 3 Enterprise. They've already released the Mavic 4 Enterprise series.
Mm-hmm.
Our network hasn't quite caught up with the Mavic 4s. So right now it is the Mavic 3Es, but if you're looking to buy or get in, it's likely that the Mavic 4 Enterprise is your best bet. There is no minimum, but a good majority of our jobs are flown with enterprise drones.
Okay. And again, I know you're not going to have like the percentage off the top of your head or whatnot, but the Mavic 3E does not have a thermal drone to it. Is there a significant percentage of jobs out there that require a thermal drone? That might not be the first thing you invest in, but would it be a good investment to have a thermal drone?
Definitely. I've said it countless times. We can't guarantee any work, but your basic package is going to be start with the Mavic 3 Enterprise. And as you get more work and you feel more comfortable in the industry, move up to the next step, which would be your Mavic 3 Thermal. And then it's just the Enterprise series. So you would do the Mavic 3 Thermal, maybe the Mavic 3 Multispectral, so on and so forth.
Gotcha. Now, with everything going on with, Chinese drones and talk about bans and things like that, is there an appetite for someone who has a blue list drone, or because again, they're quite a bit more expensive? Do pilots need to have them themselves, or do you guys have a fleet of those and rent them or let them borrow? How does blue list drones fit in?
Yep. So we get constant requests for clients that want a blue drone flown. Obviously, for security reasons. There's also green listed drones as well, which we're trying to educate not only our clients, but the pilots as well, that green listed could also be a lot of the times used in lieu of a blue drone.
Right.
Blue drone is almost specifically for military
Right.
use. And then green drones are just either American made or just non-Chinese drones.
Yeah.
But we do get a slew of blue drone requests, and oftentimes we either take that project in-house if we don't have anyone in the area with a blue drone ready to go. We'll take that project in-house or do some kind of rental agreement with a network pilot.
Gotcha. Now, I mean, I guess similar, and your answer to this next question might be similar, but what about like specialty jobs, like maybe agricultural, or which require a multispectral, or maybe a LiDAR job, or I don't know, something that requires some kind of specialty equipment that's not commonly owned and probably very expensive? Is your answer kind of the same thing there? Like, what do you do with those type of jobs? So those more done in-house, or do you farm those out with equipment that goes along with it?
Blue drones, and then you have your specialty sensors, but blue drones are just they're really expensive and just hard to come by. It's either we have to pay someone quite a bit of money to fly it for us, or we do it in-house and we just get the rental cost. But as far as multispectral and thermal and the DJI P1 and all of those kind of like big industrial pieces of equipment, or let me rephrase, big industry pieces of equipment, those are much easier to source. We have a quite a network of those pieces of equipment. So the multi-spec, the thermal, we have a pretty dense network.
Okay.
When it comes to those sensors.
Well, and you had mentioned something about insurance a little bit ago. So can you kind of unpack like what is FlyGuys insurance and what kind of insurance are you expecting from your network pilots?
So FlyGuys has their own insurance, and it does not protect our pilot. So it's highly suggested that pilots have their own insurance.
Okay. It's not necessarily required though.
Correct. And they have softwares out there that can actually let you pick a date and time on when you want your insurance. So if you know your flight is on Friday at 2 p.m., you can buy insurance for that hour and you will be insured for that hour.
Yeah, and it's pretty reasonable
there
too.
are solutions.
It's pretty reasonable too. We're talking like, $10, $20, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my experience, the challenge with that is remembering to do it, especially if it's a rainy day or whatever, and you got to shift shift your dates. You shift everything, but forget about the insurance. That's been the challenge I've run into.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about the most common types of missions and data acquisition that your pilots are asked to collect. Is there a rule of thumb in terms of like what's a typical mission if that animal even exists?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to look at it. It feels like our list of mission types grows every year, but there's mapping, there's real estate marketing, there's facade captures, there's RTK mapping. The list grows every year.
Mhm.
So depending on what mission type, what kind of client, we'll decide the deliverables and what kind of flight parameters we end up going with.
Would you, I'm kind of guessing here, but I would think that photogrammetry, whether that's drone deploy or something else, just, images to create a 3D map and model, that's my guess would be that would be like the number one type of mission. And then maybe thermography after that. Is that a true statement?
That sounds about right. Photogrammetry is probably our bread and butter, whether it's a 3D model or just a large scale mapping mission. That's probably our bread and butter right there.
Okay, very good. Now, I imagine that, some missions are a lot more complicated than others. You might have one mission where it's, you're mapping a construction site and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere and class G and, it's pretty remote and really easy to fly. But I can imagine others that are in, Atlanta, Charlotte, controlled airspace, maybe a waiver's involved, lots of manned aircraft around, the general public's around, there's an infinite number of things that can make a mission complicated. So, when you run into those complicated missions, do you kind of coach your network pilots on how to navigate that? Or is the expectation that they have a certain amount of experience and they already know how to do all that and that they're kind of on their own?
It's a little bit of both. Obviously, each mission has its own hurdles, and we're not expecting to just hand it off and expecting it to go completely according to plan. So I wouldn't call it coaching, but there's heavy coordinating depending on the project, and not so heavy coordinating whenever it's expected. So if it's a real estate marketing, we expect you to know how to fly the drone. We're not teaching you how to fly the drone, but there's hurdles to every project that could use some hand holding and some coaching.
Gotcha. So I hear you that, you're hiring professionals, right? These are 1099 pilots, and the expectation is that they are, independent contractors, meaning independent. They operate independently. With that said, I'm also kind of hearing that some of the more unique things that there is some opportunities to, if they're doing a mission and something weird's going on, that there's a phone number they can call and they can, it's probably you, Matt, and they can call up and say, hey, Matt, I'm doing this XYZ thing. This is what I think I should do. I kind of want to just run this idea about how I'm going to do this mission to you and just kind of make sure, does this sound right to you? And then you would respond. I mean, you would pick up that call and say, yeah, that sounds good. Or, you know what? Now I would do something XYZ different. Is that is that fair? Is that the kind of the level of support that you provide your network pilots?
Yeah. So each mission is associated with a mission coordinator. And yeah, we all have a phone. We all have phone numbers. We don't want to take calls and texts around the clock. So we try to clear it up during business hours. But in the case that something happens after hours or the flight is over the weekend, we are likely to answer and respond and get the mission done correctly. So yeah, it's a direct contact for each job.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so let's talk a little about frequency of jobs. And I know this is a very loaded question here. Okay, and I'm sure that there's going to be a ton of it depends type of variables, right? But let's just say, I'm a seasoned pilot. I have decent equipment. Let's just say I've got that Mavic 3E we're talking about. Maybe I've got a thermal drone, maybe a multispectral. Let's also say that I live in a major city, could be Atlanta, Charlotte, something in that neighborhood. Let's also say that I'm established, that I've got a proven track record. I've taken some jobs from you guys before, and I've got a proven record. I say yes to things. I do the job. I do what I say I'm going to do. All good stuff, right? Got an unblotched record, all good stuff. With all those caveats, and again, knowing that you can't predict the future, and it is business is business, and you don't know how many jobs are coming to the door. But based off of your history and kind of experience of kind of more or less ideal conditions, how often can I expect to get called for a job? Are we talking every day, every week, every month? What are we looking at?
So a lot of variables here. It depends on the season. It depends on a lot of things. But I would say at least once or twice a month,
Okay.
depending on your equipment and experience type. Well, at least once or twice a month, I would say. I know there's quite a few pilots out there that have not received any kind of communication once signing up with the portal, and we're working on that currently. So
Gotcha. Okay. So with that said, and again, this question, lots of variables too, and of course we can't, there's no contract here. We're just talking, and a lot of variable stuff. But let's just say you got a typical mission, whatever that happens to be. We'll just say it's a mapping mission. What can a network pilot expect to earn from a quote unquote typical mission? And again, I don't even know what typical is, and maybe you could help unpack that. But at least an order of magnitude, what are we talking about if they complete a mission?
Yep. So on a mission basis, I think what we try to stay around for like an hour's worth of work is around $135. That depends on the mission, depends on the capture type, and so on and so forth. Depends on the scale as well. So all those play a pretty big factor. But as far as like a real estate marketing shoot, it could vary from $70 to 200, just depending on the project and what you're flying around and where it's located.
70 to 200 an hour or a mission?
Per mission, but usually those real estate marketing shoots could be, they could get done in 20 minutes if you're an experienced vetted pilot, or maybe you have some troubleshooting or equipment issues on site that could turn into 2 hours.
Right. But okay, so but I would, and I get that, and the market is pretty saturated too with like those kind of fairly simplistic missions where you don't really have sophisticated equipment that's required, that sort of thing. But for a mapping mission, I mean, I would think that those have a little bit longer of a duration that goes along with them. There's travel time to get out there. There's setup time. There's coordination out in the field. I'm sure you have to meet with, I mean, again, my background's in construction, so I would definitely want to have a contract drone pilot meet with the superintendent and let them know what's going on and have a conversation, all that kind of stuff. So, what is a typical mapping mission? How many hours does it go for? And I guess kind of a follow-up question is when a network pilot is awarded a job, is it kind of like a lump sum value, or is it like this is the dollar amount rate and however many hours it takes you, we just do that multiplication?
Yeah, so it's going to depend mainly on the project. A lot of times we build our pricing off of acreage, but just to make things easy, we just talk in lump sum numbers. And as far as mapping, if we're going to go back to our bread and butter, let's say it's a 10-hour day, we'll be in the ballpark between, I don't know, $650 to maybe $900, depending on experience, location, hurdles that are nature of the project.
Yeah. Okay. 'Cause that was kind of a little bit more in line what I was thinking. Again, like a marketing picture, $70 might not be, I wouldn't, if I were to drop $70 out of my pocket, I would definitely kneel over and pick it back up. Right. But if it's a business and you got travel time and you've got gas and you've got, all that kind of stuff, $70 gets eaten up pretty quickly. But if you've got a full day mapping mission and you're 700, 900, all that kind of thing, that's some income that could, that can offset a lot of capital. And especially you're getting experience as you're doing it. So a couple of just kind of we're almost there in terms of time, but a couple of additional questions I just kind of want to close us out with. So first of all, let's do it this way. Again, I'm a professor, so very fragile ego. So be careful and lie to me if the answer is not the way I want it to go. But it sounds like we kind of started this pod by saying that I've been giving advice out about, and I've been saying that if you're kind of new to the drone business and you're looking for experience, you're looking for a way, kind of a low risk way of getting some capital in to start buying better equipment, getting some experience, start picking up jobs, building your resume. I said my advice was to join a network provider. So this is me holding my breath as I ask you this, but have I been giving good advice to folks when they've asked me that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And another big piece of advice would be to reach out to people in your area. It's a very small industry and it's a pretty tight-knit community. The more connections, it's easy to network in this industry. Reach out. That's what I would suggest.
All right. That's good advice. I appreciate that. I'll have to amend the advice that I give out as if it's one thing.
Yeah.
I like to give out advice for what it's worth, especially when it's free, because then get what you pay for type thing. All right. So one more thing I'll ask before we kind of wrap things up here. But let's just say you do join a network. And of course, there's other people that have joined that network. You are basically competing for jobs. What advice can you give a network pilot to win more work?
Experience. And I can't say this enough. There's situations where we heavily rely on some of our quote unquote go-to pilots. It's always helpful to be ride or die. If you help us out in a pinch, we're likely going to build a rapport and come right back to you. So
yeah,
when the opportunity arises, take advantage of it.
Okay, sounds good. And would you tack onto that, having decent equipment as well? If you got a Mavic Air or something like that, I mean, would another thing be on top of that, just having the go-to equipment?
Yes, the Mavic 3 Enterprise is essential to really ramping up your business.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, having the equipment to complete the job. And then, I mean, I get it from your point of view. If you're relying, again, because I in another life, I was a general contractor and I relied on subcontractors to actually do the work. And I totally understand that if you're asked to do a job and then, you ask someone else to do the job, but you're still on the hook, you're still reputation there. There's a strong inclination to keep going back to people that keep saying yes, keep doing the job, have reliability, do it well. It's low risk. You can, you got a comfort level on your side as the contractor in my example, FlyGuys in your example. So I totally understand the value of saying yes, doing what you're saying you're going to do, and working with your team. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So with that, Matt, I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up. I really do appreciate you carving out some time. Is there anything else that maybe I should have asked you but haven't asked so far?
Not off the top. I really enjoyed this, and everything you just mentioned about being a general contractor was spot on. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, perfect. Well, listen, thanks again for being on the call. For you guys that are listening to this as a recording, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I look forward to doing it again the next time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Clemson Drone Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Learn more about our online training offerings by going to clemsondrone.com. Thanks again. And remember, at Clemson Drone, the sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning. Thank you for listening to the Clemson Drone Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star rating and write a review. I'm told this makes a big difference in the algorithms used to recommend the podcast to others. Thank you.